Welcome to Ahmedabad Management Association and the first program of the celebration of Management Week. And it is a coincidence that the program for Management Week, which we are starting today, belongs to the future, and that is Gen Z. Today we are going to talk about tomorrow, and the leaders of yesterday will be talking, sharing their experience for today and tomorrow. Somewhere I had read it. It is always said that today's youth is useless or used less. Maybe we might get some answer from this. Personally, I would feel that youth is useless if they are used less. We need to understand them. We need to appreciate them. We need to see the world from their eyes. And that is how our Dr. T.V. Rao AMA Forum for Institution Building will create a platform for the future institution building. Thank you very much for joining on this different kind of a topic. Like we have a film before the interval and after the interval, the panel discussion will have seniors talking about their experiences, and then the Gen Z will also come. They will talk about what they want to share, and I'm sure we will understand and appreciate this entire conversation and take it forward. This is one such event. In future also, for the Dr. T.V. Rao AMA Forum for Institution Building, we will be having this kind of events, whether it is closed group or a bigger group or a larger group, but we'll be talking about the people who matter for us for institution building. Thank you very much. I will invite Dr. T.V. Rao, sir, on stage. We all know Dr. T.V. Rao. Let us invite him with a clap. Pioneer of HRD movement in India, widely regarded as the architect of modern HR systems in the country and co-created 360-degree feedback methodology. Former professor of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, founder president of National HRD Network. Sir, thank you very much. He's an author of 60 plus books, advisor to global institutions and corporations, and he has been a backbone, mentor, and support system to Ahmedabad Management Association since many years. So we are honored to have you and your center over here. Along with him, we have another stalwart speakers. So I'll invite Professor Alan D'Souza on stage. We all know him, but his recent association is he's an advisor to us at AMA. Apart from that, he's known as institution builder, marketing, communication expertise with over 4 decades of his experience, founding member of MICA Ahmedabad and respected educator in the integrated marketing communication, former leader across premier institutions, corporations, and academia, mentor to generations of management professionals in branding, leadership, and strategic communication. So we are very much thankful to have you with us. We have another senior speaker and one of the backbone, once again, a family member, Dr. Chandramouli Pathak, Mr. Chandramouli Pathak, a veteran entrepreneur, MSME expert, 40 plus years of grassroots impact across India in 20 countries. Half of the time either is in classroom or is in the farm. A concerned person for climate change. His family has given us a center for climate change. We are thankful for that also. Empowered to over 1 lakh entrepreneurs in collaboration with SIDBI, NABARD, ILO, and UNDP. Advisor and visiting faculty of IIM, EDI, specialist in MSME, and many other things. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. We have another speaker with us, Mr. Nikhil Raval. Globally recognized leadership and organizational development expert with 30 plus years of experience across US and Asia Pacific. Former managing director and board member of Duke CE India. Best-seller author, TEDx speaker, and host the global ranked podcast Working with Gen Z. And that is how he's going to take the second post-interval part together also. Partner with organizations worldwide to build strategic leadership capability across generations. Thank you very much. I would request our past president, Mr. Divyesh Radia, to felicitate Dr. T.V. Rao. Thank you. I would request Mayur Bhai to felicitate Professor Ellen D'Souza. Thank you. I would request Devang Bhai to come and felicitate Chandramouli Pathak Sahab. I would request Avasti Sahab, if you can come and welcome the keynote speaker for today, apart from this panel, Mr. Nikhil Raval. Thank you very much. I'll invite Dr. T.V. Rao to share his thoughts, the theme of this session, and take it forward. Thank you very much, everybody, once again. Yeah. One group photograph, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Unmesh Bhai, for the nice introduction you gave to all of us. I must particularly thank Radia ji and the Ahmedabad Management Association for instituting this forum for institution building. Thank you very much, and I'm so happy that you are able to make it. I'll trace a little bit of the history of this, why we thought. I joined the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad in 1973. And I had the privilege and opportunity to work with Professor Ravi Mathai, who was the first full-time director of IIM. After he stepped aside as the director of IIM Ahmedabad, I used the term stepped aside. Many people used to say stepped down, and he was very particular. I was never up to step down. Stepped aside to make other people to take it forward. There's a very interesting lesson in institution building, which I learned, first lesson from Ravi Mathai. After that, for the next 10 years, I had the opportunity to work with him, where Ravi spent a lot of his time trying to achieve the objectives of the institute, mission of the institute, which was set by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, who also happened to be the founder of the Ahmedabad Management Association. Most of you may not know, Ahmedabad Management Association started much before the Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad started. And AMA president used to be a member of the board for many years. And not only that, he was a member of the board. When some of them became members of AIMA, All India Management Association, also they used to impact IIM Ahmedabad. The first thing we did when we started the education systems group, which consisted of three of us, Dr. Uday Parikh, who himself was a great organizational behavior theorist, was to start this group in education systems. And the first seminar we conducted was on institution building, 1974. 73, I joined December 74. And the reason for that was that Ravi Mathai believed it is possible to build great institutions if you can take care of a few things. One, he believed that autonomy, treat every faculty member as an institution builder. That was very interesting. I heard this kind of a comment in Jesuit institutions where I happened to do some review, where they used to say every priest is a man on mission. I think Ravi Mathai used to think that way. Every faculty member is an institution builder. And that was shown by many faculty who have made mark across the globe. You can take anyone, some of whose names you are familiar with, Anil Gupta, who has done marvelous job in terms of setting up institutions. Dr. C.K. Prahlad, who used to come here off and on and used to enthuse a lot of people with his theories and things like that. I started the National HRD Network. So we considered institution building as a very important thing. In fact, we brought out a book on institution building for which many people contributed, which included Dr. Kamla Chaudhary, whose name I'm sure you can't miss it if you have seen the Rocket Boys. Uh, uh, and of course, Yashpal, who used to at that point of time work with ISRO, Nayudamma, CSIR, and Ishwar Dayal, Prayag Mehta, Uday Parikh himself. None of them is alive. Only one of the team is alive. Pai Panandekar lives in Goa. I think he's in his 90s. But when we went through this, I think this book was published by All India Management Association. When we went through this, we felt that this book is still relevant. There were models offered for managing universities, models offered for institution building, faculty evaluation, and things like that. So we thought that Ahmedabad has great institutions. Many of us don't realize what we have in Ahmedabad. You pick up any institution, besides the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, ISRO is a great institution. If you look at it, it's everywhere now. Blind People's Association, another great institution, National Institute of Design. In later years, the Center for Entrepreneurship, Nirma University, and I think Center for Environmental Education. I think you can go on and on. But we have not really found time to think of what makes some of these institutions great. In the last 10 years, many new universities have come into existence. Dinesh Avasthi sir is here. I don't know if there are other vice chancellors. I think you are about 10, 15 years old. He has a university, 4 years old. And we thought that there is something which we need to do in terms of helping these new universities to look at institution building and make them great. We should make every institution in Ahmedabad to be a great institution. So we started this, and we had the first round table a few months back, in which some of you happened to be there, and we were discussing how do we make institutions great. Number of ideas came. The most important idea that came was that all these institutions are struggling with managing the younger generation, which we now call as Gen Z. We probably have not understood. The evidence to this came to me because one of these days, I think just about 2-3 years ago, when I was walking in IIM corridors, one of the most frequently judged, assessed best professor, who got best professor award, I just greeted him and said that, how are things with you? He said, not good. Why do you say that? He said, it's very difficult to teach this younger generation. Why do you say it's difficult? Their span of attention is less. The moment I put the PPT on the screen, I think I hardly go through one PPT, the mind is off. It's very difficult to catch their attention. And therefore, and then if I have to give anything, they've already got ChatGPT solutions and they're going to present this. I said, that's very interesting. I think, therefore, we need to understand Gen Z. Just a month after that, I happened to listen to Professor Govindarajan, who happened to be an IIM Ahmedabad ex-faculty. I call him Prahlad's fame because after Prahlad, he is rated consistently as the top 50 global management people, gurus. He said that I understand Gen Z, they are very smart, but as a professor, I have to be also smart. So now I know if I give them a case, they will go through the case and then use ChatGPT and present a solution. So now I changed my trick. What I do is I give them ChatGPT's solution myself and ask them to come up with a better solution. That is because that has already put them at par with ISIS. It's a wonderful kind of a thing. So in our round table, when we discussed some of the things, it was felt universities and colleges need to understand and appreciate Gen Z so that we can leverage their talent, because they're highly talented people. I know how talented they are. In my own family, we are about 9 of us, including 2 of my daughters, my son, and then 2 other grandchildren. So we have 5 generations. I belong to the baby boomers generation, me and my wife, and my son and one daughter belong to Gen X. The second daughter belongs to Gen Y. One of their sons belonged to Gen Z, and the last one, born in 2016, belongs to the Alpha generation. So you can see there are 5, and we just had a dinner a couple of days back, and I asked myself, what is it that makes us gel? I think there are certain solutions which I think people or good organizations which manage multiple generations offer. I strongly believe that openness is something, communication is something that is very important. What Uday Parikh and I use it to call as octopus values that cut across all generations, and that can be a binding factor. But we want to know, this is just a theory, but we would like to know. So the reason why we wanted uh, this kind of a meeting where we got experts, wonderful researches have been done by some of the speakers who are here, is to understand from their perspective, their research, their experiences, Gen Z, which will be useful both for teachers as well as, and there was an interesting perspective that was added much later when we were discussing. Ellen was with us in that particular roundtable. Uh, Professor Pathak was also there. Um, Dinesh Bhai was there. Radiaji was there. Quite a few of you were there. One of the perspectives added by Ellen was very interesting. I didn't think of it. He said that, look, we are looking at Gen Z as students or learners in universities, and we are looking at Gen Z as employees in organizations. I think 70% of the new organizational employees are Gen Z. I would assume 70-80%. In future, it is going to be much more, I think. But we never looked at them as consumers, which was very interesting. And I thought that that's a wonderful kind of a thing. Later, when I read the book by uh, Rawalji, I discovered that he has already covered that particular part. Very interesting. So we thought we should put all our heads together and then exchange our views with you. And we thought that this, whatever we say is one-sided, our researchers, etc., it will be totally incomplete unless we have the Gen Z here. And that's where we have the next panel after we speak sometime. 4 of them who are going to be here, who are going to share with us their perspectives and react to whatever we have said. So we are here to learn from certainly 4 of them, as well as from the 3 experts who are going to be sharing here. I hope you will enjoy this. I myself look forward to this, and look forward to learning about Gen Z, and then keep sharing the experience with the HRD network and other people. Thank you very much for coming in such large numbers, and wish you all great learning. Thank you.
नहीं पीपीटी नहीं है सिर्फ बाद में आ जाएगा Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for coming here, spending a couple of hours with us on this, what I think is a very interesting subject, understanding Gen Z. Thank you, Unmeshji, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Professor T.V. Rao, for providing the basic platform on which we are building this particular topic. As he mentioned, as Professor Rao mentioned, under the aegis of the T.V. Rao Center here for institution building, we had a roundtable some time back where one of the topics that came up was raised by an educationist. And he said, one of the things that is burning in our minds today is, as educators, how to deal with today's generation of students because of various factors. And therefore we said, and Unmeshji said, that this is a wonderful topic on which to build on. So we decided that we will take this initiative here at the Ahmedabad Management Association, which is, as an institution, as Professor Rao mentioned, is older than IIM Ahmedabad. And in keeping with Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's vision that management should be for everybody, Ahmedabad Management Association was created, which is why AMA reaches out to every section of society with whatever program interests them and tries to bring the management component into everything that we do. So having said that, in line with Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's vision, we said that if institution building is an important aspect of our lives, and when you talk about institutions, even family is an institution of some kind. Even family is where management is played, and the husband and wife play the role of the managers in the family. So management is not an alien concept that is meant for only those who go into IIM Ahmedabad or some school of management, but it is for everyone. Having said that, we said that Ahmedabad Management Association has done extremely brilliant work over the years since the time it was founded in 1956. And we said, now let's put on a different lens and let's take a look at what the future is going to look like. And the future is not something very far off. It's actually already operating. And my own hypothesis is that the future of institutions will be driven by two elements. One is Gen Z, as we call them, and later on we'll have the other generations coming up. And the third is Gen AI. So essentially, people and technology will be driving the world. And therefore, we need to understand both these particular systems and how they operate. And it is with that end in view that we initiated this program today. So this program today, as Dr. Rao has mentioned, is divided into two parts. One is the older generation, which consists of Nikhil Raval, Professor Pathak, and myself. We'll include him for this purpose. So we said that we'll provide a perspective where we will talk about some of the elements that drive these three verticals, if I might call it. One is the education vertical, where as educators, what are the things that we need to do? The second is the workplace, where employers are having a lot of younger generation coming into the workplace and coexisting with the older generation, which is providing its own set of issues. And thirdly, as Dr. Rao mentioned, I thought that maybe we should also include consumers as a basket, because this generation is a very, very different generation. And since I come from the advertising, marketing, branding background, I have seen how things have changed and how things are rapidly changing as far as consumerism and markets are concerned. So if we bring all these three on a common platform and try to understand this cohort of individuals, not as problems, not as challenges, but as opportunities, and then develop strategies by which we can deal with this cohort, which is a very, very important cohort, which is going to drive the future, and then look at the intersection of technology, which I call Gen AI, I think we will be able to develop something very interesting in times to come. So therefore, this is just the starting point. We are working at AMA to develop this as a major project for the future, and AI will be the other part of it. So we're trying to see how to, take this forward, and this is just the first attempt. So it's not just an event. What we believe, it's a process. It's something that we are initiating, and hopefully we will be able to build on what we learned today. As Dr. Rao mentioned, it would be futile if we talk about the perspective from only one lens and look at it from only the perspective of those who are not Gen Z. So therefore, we interestingly added another element, and I think that element will be a far more fun session than the first one that you'll be going through, because ours will be research-based and stuff like that. But still, I think there will be a lot of learning for all of us. And I therefore hope that this time that you are spending will be extremely enlightening. A lot of things I discovered by interacting with my fellow speakers, I didn't know before. And therefore, I think all of you are going to have a very, very enriching experience on this subject. And those of you who are very interested in engaging with us in the future, we will invite you to come and see us. We'll provide the necessary communication links, but do come and join us so that we can work together, because this is a participative exercise. This is not something that is one-sided. We'd like to learn from you. We learn from all our programs, and I think we should be able to build something very interestingly. With that little added introduction, I'd like to invite my colleague Nikhil Rawal to come and make his presentation. So essentially, this will be a presentation format. We have prepared slides. We will talk to you based on those slides. And then, we'll go into the second aspect, which will be a more informal kind of a setting where we'll have the Gen Z sitting here and Nikhil will bombard them with questions, and you see what kind of responses you're going to get from them. So thank you very much for coming, and Nikhil, all yours.
Workplace. Slide change.
Okay, good evening, friends. So very happy to see a very full house on a Monday evening. And before I kick in on a topic which I think there's a lot of curiosity, Alan, as you mentioned, Professor Rao has mentioned, we have two Gen Z boys at our home. They're outside now, but my motivation to get to know and write about Gen Z began there. And over the last 5-6 years, I've spent quite extensively working with companies who have to manage Gen Zs, or Gen Zs have to deal with their bosses. So I'm trying to bring a kind of a practitioner's lens. But before I kick in, I think we should just give a big round of applause for all our AMA colleagues, Unmesh Bhai and everybody, to pick a topic which I think is so relevant today. I mean, just in the last half an hour, we met several educators, entrepreneurs. Everybody wants to know about Gen Z. So there's something about Gen Z that I think people want to know, and so what it is. So let's get to it. I think, as Alan mentioned, the purpose of this forum, or the purpose of this session today, is not really to bash Gen Z or defend Gen Z. We are here to kind of share some of the patterns that we have seen, and we want to glean some insights and what are some of the practical implications out of that, right? And the end goal, at least from a work perspective, is very simple. As Professor Rao mentioned, every company today has at least 4 generations working, minimum 3-4 generations. And so the end goal is very much, how do we collaborate better? And we'll see some real issues that I'll highlight over the next sort of 30 minutes. And then see that what are the ways in which we can overcome that. So the flow will be very simple. We're going to talk about that the working landscape is changing completely. Okay, post-COVID, even more so. The worker is changing, the workplace is changing, and the work itself is changing. Therefore, we're going to kind of examine some of that. As we heard, there are multiple generations. Each generation brings its own lens. And therefore, we need to take a little bit of pause just to understand, why does my boss ask an email when I could have done a voice note, right? That's the Gen Z's way of thinking, right? And so we'll look at, what shapes their personalities, or what shapes the context in which the Gen Z shows up. And then, of course, we'll look at what are some of the things that companies are doing as a way to kind of learn and, think about how do we bring Gen Z and the other generations together. So before I start, I'm going to ask a set of questions. And these set of questions is not there as an icebreaker, nor is it there to create engagement in the audience. But I want to start this session by first asking each one of you in the room to first understand yourself, meaning to say that your generation. Okay, so let us understand our generation, because when we talk about multi-generations and a generational conflict, it is not that there is something wrong with the other generation. It is the lens in which we bring and we see is where it all kind of can go wrong. Okay, so here we go. I am going to just ask the question, raise your hand, and you can kind of see also who else is there in the room. So these are the years, friends, in which the generations have been defined, right? 46 to 64 is a boomer, 65 to 79 is Gen X. That's part of my generation. 80 to 95 is Generation Y. And then, of course, you have 96 onwards to 12, which is Gen Z. So how many of you here are boomers? Raise your hand. Okay. Just all the people here up front looks like. Okay, no problem. But let's see who else is there. How about the Gen X's? How many Gen X's if you're born between 65? Okay, pretty good. Not bad. I have company here now. So that's good. Gen Y's, millennials, 80 to 95. Okay, so again, it seems like the Generation X seems here more than the Z. And how about the Z's? We're talking about the Z's. Oh, the very important people. Okay, the Z's are in the back. Okay. So you can look around and you can look at the responses of some of the questions that I'm going to ask now. What is it that you wanted to be when you grew up? Okay, so that's my question. How many said doctor, CA, or engineer? Raise your hand. Okay, all right. How many say I want to be a celebrity? Okay, not a, oh, okay. Which generation, ma'am? Generation X. Okay, you got two people. How about entrepreneur? Okay, there's several of you. All right. Why? It's not a surprise. We're in Ahmedabad. Politician and other. How many of you want to be? Only 2, 3. Okay. All right. It's a brave career, right? Okay. What was the first thing that my generation wanted to buy? How many say home? Okay. So home was very important. What about PC? I just want to see how the Gen Zs are laughing when I ask this question. Okay. What about a car? How many felt that when I got out of the college, car was the thing that I need to buy? And now I'm going to ask, how about a company? Okay, look at that. That's, okay, very interesting. What was your favorite childhood drink when you were growing up? Thumbs up. Okay. Did the Gen Z know thumbs up exists? Right? I just, okay, okay. I see Pepsi. How about Pepsi? Okay, a few on Pepsi. Starbucks. Okay, I thought Starbucks is becoming very popular and other. Okay, so we'll just leave the other as that, right? Okay, brothers and sisters in my generation, they played with me when I was growing up and helped me to do chores. Can you recall when you were growing up? Okay, yeah. They were fun till I was a teenager. Then I really didn't get along. Okay, all right. I see them now once a year. We are very, very busy. Anybody feel like that? Okay. Which ones? Step brother or real ones? Okay. Okay, last one. When you got in trouble, when your generation got in trouble, what is it that your mother would do? Did she wait till the father comes home? Okay, raise your hand. Okay, all right. Yeah. We are grounded or locked. Okay. Okay. Got a tight slap. Have to be careful about this now. Tight slap. Okay. D, ignore all of this and then found a solution in a self-help book. How many? Oh, okay. Wow. How many had A, B, and C together? Anybody? Oh, okay. Okay. So what does this tell us, friends, about the generation? It tells us that how do we look at generations, right? From our perspective, what in the world of Gen Z has changed that makes us see them that they are becoming irrational, which is completely rational to them. And so I think what we want to do over the next 5 minutes or so is just help you understand the context of each generation. And then we'll dive into some of the real issues that are existing in a multi-gen workspace. Okay, so I have a slide here, which is the speech bubble. I don't know how many of you in the back can see, but by the way, these are real comments. And these are comments made by either the bosses about the Gen Z or the Gen Z making about the bosses, right? What's the point of training this person? They're not going to be around after a year. Why can't we have more technology, right? I want to talk to her, but she's never looking. She's always on the phone. right? So what is it saying, right? When we look at this, it's really just kind of not necessarily talking about the personality clash that is happening at the workplace, right? It's not that. It's just the expectation of the generation, right? And therefore, that is what we kind of want to understand, that how does each generation see. And by the way, these are real, very real. These are actual quotes that I have gotten from clients. So, right. So when a baby boomer says discipline, right, the Gen Z sees it feels very inefficient. When the Gen Z sees speed, the other generation see that there is a haste, right? So we'll get into that. Now, this is a slide in which you get to understand the total generations. Now, in all, there are a total of 9 generations. Most of us are familiar with about 3 or 4, but if you look at all the literature about the generation, there's about 9 generations that exist. Okay, so there are 2 which probably most people don't know existed: the lost generation and the GI generation. There is the silent generation, boomer, X, Y, Z, alpha, and beta. Okay, now what I have done and what you see on the left is that these are the years in which, if you're born in these years, that's how experts have defined that you're called or you become that generation. Right now, in some literature, the dates can vary by a year or 2, but for the most part, these are the years. And the way in which they have defined is that there is a chunk of events that have happened in these years across the globe. But this entire idea of generations was exported from America to the rest of the world. And therefore, what has happened is that we've taken that same vocabulary, but the context for us in India is very, very different. So I'll talk about that. Now, it's very interesting for you to look at the numbers on the side. Like, so you can see that the youngest boomer would be 62. The eldest of the boomer would be 80, just based on the age bracket that we have, right? The Gen X is 46 to 62, 30, 45. Gen Z, the youngest is 14, and the other one is 29. Alpha goes from 2 to 16. So what does this say? It says that every company today, whether you are an entrepreneur-owned company, you're an NGO, doesn't matter, you're a publicly listed company, right, has a minimum of 3 generations, okay, but possibly 4. If you go on the younger and on the other side, right? So that means there are 4 generations working. There's a good chance your boss is a Gen Y. If you're a Gen Z, there's a good chance it could be a Gen Xer, the super boss, and so on, right? So this creates a lot of dynamics, and we'll talk about just some of the context about these generations. Now, I don't want to spend time here. We all know what generations are. Generation is, again, as I said, it's about our collective experience when we are growing up. What shapes us, right? What are the parenting styles? What are some of the social rules? I remember when we were growing up, it was very common and almost expected to go and meet everybody on a Diwali, and we didn't have a chance or a opportunity to crib about it, but that's what it was in that time. And now that whole social pattern has taken a shift. So the generation today doesn't expect that. They're quite happy just doing it on a WhatsApp, and so that's how it is. And so that's what generations are. But why it matters is because your initial years become very critical and crucial, because they kind of create the foundation for your beliefs, and that is what you take to the work. Okay, and so we'll explore that. Now, these are the events that have happened in each of the generations, and this is what has shaped their context. Now, most of the literature that's out there today is going to talk about in a very Western context, very US context. And so what I have done is I've kept some of the global events, but the highlighted ones are the ones which are in yellow, which is what you see what happened in India. Now, again, I don't want to go into the detail, but what it's trying to essentially illustrate is that each generation brings a certain value because of their context. So if you are a boomer and if you grew up in scarcity, you valued stability. If you are a Gen Y and you grew up in a time where there are more opportunities, you expected growth. If you are a Gen Z, you can look at their context. There is so much turbulence that has happened in the 26, 27 years of their life. So if you expect Gen Z to say that, think long term, they really can't picture that way, because everything that they know seems to be impermanent, right? Because there's something that happens, there's a war, there's a pandemic, there's a fake news. So we have to appreciate the context in which each generation comes in, and we'll see that how this shapes what is happening at the workplace, right? This particular slide talks about what are the very specific values that each generation, therefore, from their context, brings to the workplace, right? So most of us can relate, if we have parents or grandparents, to say that, my Dadaji had a job or my parent had a job, and for them it was told that if you got one job, you hold on to it and you went for next 30, 40 years, and that's how it became, because again, they came from a certain context. Now, for the boomer generation, the thing that they are valuing is that there is respect for hard work, and I need to be loyal to my employer, because in my world, in my context, there were fewer opportunities. I got the job, let me be loyal to them. Generation X is often called the sandwich generation, or also sometimes called the donkey generation, because they carry the load of two generations, one about their aging parents and one are younger children or children on the other side. And this is the first generation which kind of started experiencing, or we hear the term work-life balance, because both spouses were working, they had younger children, they had to manage multiple time zones and so on. Gen Y and Gen Z, you can see, are the two most talked about generation now, right? There's a lot of literature on millennials, which is Gen Y, and then of course Gen Z. Gen Y is the generation which started first becoming very comfortable with technology. They started revealing who they were on the technology, and Gen Z kind of went from the other side on that curve to say that, okay, they respect privacy and so on. But the summary of this slide is very simple, that one generation expects loyalty from workplace, the other generation expects growth from workplace, the other generation expects influence at the workplace, and the other generation expects like how I want relevance. For Gen Z, it is more about what is work going to mean for us. Post-COVID, most Gen Zs are questioning the equation that they have with themselves and the employer. I'm not willing to sign up for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and give away my life unless I see a meaning in that organization. And this is a very real issue, friends. When we talk about attrition, when we talk about the fact that people are leaving, it is happening because somewhere the employee value proposition of that company is not appealing. And we'll see what companies are doing to do that, overcome that. So I want to take next 10 minutes just to talk about some very crucial sort of events or things that are becoming kind of hot plate discussions between the generations. So first and foremost, just let's take a look at the rate at which we heard from Alan that technology, Gen AI and Gen Z are the two sort of pillars that we want to build through this forum. And as you can see on this particular slide, friends, is that the rate at which technology is growing, you can see that it is not a linear curve, right? So from 1750 to 2050, you can see that in the first 100 years, only 2 inventions were made. The next 100 years, another 2 inventions were made. And then from 1950 onwards, and we haven't even reached 2050, you can see the rate at which technology is changing. It took almost 2.5 generations to see that change of the 2 inventions, and then another 2.5 generations, and then you can see that the life expectancy is growing. Now, what's the impact of this? The impact of this is very, very real, friends. And all of us would have heard the term 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, right? Industry 5.0. And you can see on this particular chart that when you're talking about Industry 1.0, the expectation was just basically physical labor. 2.0 talks about standardization. 3.0 talks about science, technology, engineering, math skills. 4.0 and 5.0, where we are today, right? It actually talks about learning agility. Learning agility is the number one thing for the manager and for the employee to keep in mind. And the best example for us to, what do we mean by learning agility? It's the ability to unlearn what I know from the past. So if I take the claim that I've got 30 years of experience and I'm going to tell you, I think you really need to relook that, right? And therefore, learning agility is simply talking about how do I unlearn quickly what I knew? COVID was the best example, right? If I'm a pharma graduate coming out of 2020, I can't say that I've solved the world's problem because I have the best vaccine. I need to think about who's going to get it. I need to think about how we're going to pay it. I need to think about how we're going to ship it. I need to think about what's the communication strategy. So what is happening is that every company, every manager needs to build what we call the transdisciplinary lens to the issue. Okay. And therefore, if you think about a very traditional way of looking at careers in life, right? You spend 25 years of your life getting education. Then you spend the next 40 years of life going up the ladder, climbing or working for a company, working for a firm, building a firm, right? And maybe by age 60, 65, you're going to retire and you were lucky you got a pension. That whole concept has vanished now. And by 67, you will die. Okay, so that's how life was. Now you can say that, now you can see that all of that is changing fundamentally. Okay, you can see that the runway has become much longer, right? So therefore, the life expectancy in India, of course, will not get there at 90, but it's getting there slowly, right? And therefore, we're saying that if life expectancy becomes 90, that means more and more people are working longer. I have seen very regularly on LinkedIn people in their mid 70s, people in their late 70s looking for a job, either out of doing something or a need and so on, right? And therefore, what we are saying is that learning becomes your ticket to the longevity and the engagement at the workplace. So every company who does not take the view that, look, I'm going to get an employee and I hope he or she is going to take, you have to rethink that. And this applies as much to the boss as it applies to the subordinate, which is to say that if you don't learn, you'll be extinct, right? And therefore, what we are saying is that learning becomes very crucial. So one of the things that companies have to really look at is that how do I build a learning culture, not just for the Gen Z, but for themselves as well. And you can look at the ways in which you can do that. You can coach, you can do cross assignments, stretch assignments, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the first thing, that you really need to make sure that learning becomes the DNA of your organization. Okay, when we talk about Gen Z in India, remember there isn't one Gen Z, okay? We are not in UAE or America where it's a little more homogeneous. We have a very extremely and complex heterogeneous demographic story, right? And therefore, for us, the Gen Z in metro has one set of expectation, and the Gen Z in the non-metro has a very another kind of expectation, right? The Gen Z at the tier 1, tier 2 cities is probably only exposed to some of the same brands and have traveled the world. And therefore, when they join a company, they all are looking for a purpose and how do I kind of do things on a weekend and so on. But then there is another part of the story which says that if you go to tier 3, tier 4 kind of cities, right, what is happening is that Gen Z is very happily working for a manufacturing company. They're very happily working late, very happily working on a weekend. So we have multiple Gen Z stories existing in India, right? And so again, as you can think about, is that there is also the gig economy, right? Where we say that a lot of the Gen Zs are part of the gig economy. There's the traditional corporate and there's the creator community. Now, back in the day when you were in a organization, the organization's pace of growing was considered at a certain pace. So you joined, you gained expertise, you were with one company, and then you had one steady career. Okay, now that entire scenario is changing. Industries are changing, and therefore what we are seeing is that skills are becoming much more relevant. Skills are dying faster than jobs are, which means that you really need to think about new skills. So when the Gen Z is asking for, give me a rotation, give me something that I can do within 6 months, it's also not because they're restless, because also a way to think about how will they compete into a 50-year runway where so much is changing. Okay, so you can think about this is a traditional career path versus what you think about is what's called the career lattice. Okay, and also how do different generations look at careers, right? So there is a generation which is quite happy being in a company and wants to grow vertically. There is a generation which is quite happy being in the company and wants to grow vertically, or horizontally, which means that they want to master more of the other domains. Then you have other generations like the Gen Z, which is very keen to understand job through rotations and so on, right? And then of course there is the one generation which is looking for how do you experience growth in a company through influence. So when you think about the traditional employee value proposition, you have your salary, your perks, all of that is one part of the story. That is quickly changing to selling and creating experiences. And I was sharing this story to our colleagues on the panel here that there is a company, there's an IT company, which was not able to bring young Gen Zs. So guess what they did? The senior leadership of that company basically created 40 TikTok videos. Okay, 60-second, 90-second videos in which they tell, why they should come and work for this company. Not only that, they went a step further in kind of outlining to say that on a weekend, if you're posted in Bangalore, this is what you do. On a weekend, this is what you can go out to eat and so on and so forth, right? So it is about giving them that opportunity, right? And I think the value proposition from a Gen Z perspective is saying that compensation is simply not enough, right? Compensation brings the Gen Z into the workplace. Learning keeps them. The moment you stagnate, they're out, okay? So that's the other thing to keep in mind. How many of you think that what's the Gen Z's preferred way of communication? Is it talking? Is it texting? Is it email or face-to-face? Texting. Actually, you're wrong. It's not texting. It's face to face. Why? Because the world that we are working now is no more is that old world that we knew where we go inside the office. Most of us, every single company now is probably grappling with this and probably have become very steady with their expectation of what hybrid should look like, right? And when I say face to face, it's the Gen Z's definition of face to face, which is through a virtual medium. Okay, so you think about a Zoom call or a team call or a WebEx or something like that. They prefer that versus, or even if you think about like a WhatsApp call or WhatsApp video call. So the whole hybrid situation is really kind of creating a lot of dynamics, right? I mean, I have heard people say, call the boss and say, hey, I am on a vacation. Can I work from a beach? Right? Or I will take a day off today because my friends are going to play golf and I will just do this on a weekend. Okay. And how do I go about getting that one recording of the meeting that I kind of couldn't attend, right? So there are some real challenges of very large global companies who are kind of dealing with how to kind of manage the whole hybrid challenge, right? Now, this is a 2x2 that Satya Nadella gave right after COVID, in which he's basically saying that every single manager of a company, small, medium, big size, will have to deal with what he calls the 2x2 of working in a hybrid world, which means he will have to be good in managing a team with person and he will have to be good also managing a team remotely. If you take the view that, look, I can manage a team because I have to be at the office and, I cannot do a Zoom call and that's not the way I work. Sorry. Right. And therefore, there's a pro and con of each of that. Right. So, for example, if you are in the office, it creates more collaboration. But if you're outside, it creates more efficiency. So how do you kind of work in that environment? And one of the biggest challenges that happens when you think about the hybrid is that how and what's the form of communication, right? In India and in Asia particularly, we see that WhatsApp has become the default way of communicating to clients and to everybody, right? But in large companies where you have global clients or your colleagues elsewhere, right, you really need to have like some kind of a protocol which talks about it, which is email for certain things, tools for certain things, chat, and so on, right? So I'll just take another 5 minutes and then we'll hand over to our next speaker. So what are the ways in? So I have touched upon just 3 very basic challenges that are there. There are other layers to the Gen Z story, which we can kind of peel at some other time. But what's the antidote to all of this? If there is hybrid, if there is a learning challenge, all of this is there. How and ways, what are the ways in which I can kind of overcome this? So one of the ways you can think about that is reverse mentoring, right? This is a term that was introduced by Jack Welch many years back when he was in GE. And he said that, look, a lot of my senior managers are not good with technology. And therefore, I think my younger managers can teach them how to learn technology. And that whole concept over a year and over time has taken shape. There's the very loosely held definition of reverse mentoring to a very structured way of doing reverse mentoring, right? And companies who are doing that are really seeing benefit. And there are lots of examples of how companies have implemented that, right? But if you think about the reasons why this makes sense, right? You upskill your technology quotient. How many of you agree that your technology quotient is lesser than the Gen Z technology quotient? Right? Absolutely. Right? I mean, in my house, if there's some new toy or a tool or something, right? When I give it to the 2 Gen Z boys, they just first laugh at me like, okay, are you gonna should we sit down and explain to you, right? And so there's a realization that look, we have a curve that we need to kind of go up. So that's one. We need to know, we get to understand their expectation of their generations. How do we retain them and so on, right? I give 2 examples very quickly, Mahindra and Godrej. Mahindra, many years back, Mr. Anand Mahindra himself created an initiative where he handpicked people who were below the age of 30 and 35. And these were handpicked with the intent that they will actually be called what's called shadow board, right? Which means that they will be asked for a distinct point of view on the various aspects of the business. So they were given a 2-year window to think about what are the ways in which we can improve the business, right? And it wasn't something that, oh, we will do it on a weekend. No, they had expected. They said that, look, we may disagree with you. We may not do anything of it. And a lot of the things that you see in Mahindra today is a result of what is reverse mentoring, right? So the around-the-clock support, the ways in which you manage compensation, all of that was done as part of this. Okay, one last thing, and then we'll move forward. What is it that you see on this on this screen here. What's the image? How many see? Well, I don't want to give it away, but I'm curious to hear, like, what is it that you see? Yeah, you can just raise your hand if you see something, or if you're not sure. Yeah? Okay, somebody's playing an instrument. What else is there? Face. Okay, very good. So maybe you have seen this before, but a lot of times people see one and not see the other, right? So there is the guy who's playing the saxophone, and there is this mask that's there, right? So it's based on what you see. Sometimes people are so stuck in looking at one image they can't see the other image, right? And so why do we say this? Because that is crucial to managing multi-generations. We all bring certain biases about who we are and how we look at things, and we all know how that we have biases, right? And I don't want to go into this in great detail, but the brain works in a way where there's so much information coming, they have to make decisions. And because there's so much to absorb and process, we simply take a shortcut, right? How many of you can remember these words? Like, I'll give you 5 seconds. Don't take a picture, and just see if you can recall these words. No picture allowed, okay? Ready? Huh? Have you seen? Yeah? Acha, was the word slumber there? Yes. Okay. Bed? Bed? Not there. Okay, it was there. Dream? Yes. Nap? Yes. Sleep? Yes. No, sleep wasn't there. Okay, so what has happened here? The brain is taking a shortcut because it was everything related to sleep, but sleep itself wasn't there, right? And so I think it's just a quick demonstration of how our biases come in the way when we think about other generations, right? And one of the most common, there are lots of them, I'll just talk about one last one here, which is the confirmation bias, which means that we take our beliefs of what we know, we have the evidence, and we only see partial side of it, and then we kind of create a conclusion on it. And the story that I always tell is that about my son. This is my son when he was in grade 10. And that's the burning question, parents, karna kya hai? Abhi aage kya karoge? So there's no pressure from us as parents, right? He was a good student. He liked biology. At one point, he wanted to pursue to become a doctor. We have other colleagues in our family who have become entrepreneurs. My brother is an entrepreneur. So, he was equally interested in commerce. My father is an arts major, was an arts major. He traveled some 60, 70 countries. So the more he was listening to them, the more he was getting confused. And so at one fine day, we asked the principal, saying that, look, we don't have a expectation, but what should we do? And the teacher simply said, the principal said that, have you taught and told about the other side of the career? So the moment he learned that you have to do 14 years to become a doctor, he said, that's out. Or the fact that if you want to become a chartered accountant, most people take 4, 5 years, 6 years to become a chartered accountant. Therefore, I'll rethink that, right? So why do I say that? It's because when you see the other side of the story is when you appreciate and look at the context, right? And therefore, when we're managing people, we tend to go to say that, okay, if a Gen Z is on a device, he or she is just probably, ignoring me, when in fact that they could be taking note, right? So what we do in our workshops is that we tell the managers to say that be very conscious of looking for that other point of view. You may disagree with it. You can override it, right, at the boss, but please get into the habit of inviting that opinion, right? And therefore, that makes it easier for us to appreciate that. So just as a way to close this, as I give an example that I am part of Generation X, my parents were from the boomer generation, my spouse, Generation X, siblings, I have a brother, younger brother, again, Generation X, children, Generation Z. I work mostly with Y and Z, and then boss at one point in time was a boomer. So you can see that everyone comes with their own lens of looking at the world, right? And therefore, you just have to be conscious of the lens that you're bringing in before you think about some of the issues, right? So one quick thing I'll say is, just as a way to close, is that generations have always existed. It is not a new concept. It's existed at the home. You've had parents, you've had grandparents. So it is not something very, very stark and different, but it is becoming more pronounced at the work because of the way in which things are changing at the workplace. And therefore, the first place, if you are a manager, if there's any bosses who are going to manage Gen Z, the first is becoming self-aware of who you are. And it takes a little bit of humility to say that, look, I tend to do this. I tend to pray and fall on the confirmation bias more often than I think. I really need to do my part. And then how do we take the time to understand others, right? That's the second piece. And then just reflect and rewire. I'll just say this last slide, which is to say that if you look at the Indian story, right, there is about roughly 37 crores worth of Gen Z in our country today, roughly, okay? You got Gen Y, which is 42 crores, Gen X, 28 crores, and Boomers are 13 crores. Now, if you just look down, like I told you about the ages, the youngest and the eldest, right? The 20-year shift, what is happening in the 20-year shift? The 20-year shift said that by 2036, right, exactly 10 years from now, you will see that the middle managers in your organization will be who? Will be Gen Zs, right? And the 2046, you will see that they will actually become senior managers, right? By that time, the Generation X would have probably been in sunset. And millennials, again, if they wish to extend their survey, you will see that they're there. What does that tell you? It tells you that don't have a view about them on they're this, they're narcissistic, they're entitled, they're this. You have no choice but to get to know them. If we have a goal of becoming a Viksit Bharat, it's the Gen Z who we have to develop and make sure that the Gen Z succeeds, right, for that to happen, right? So Gen Z is just not the future of workforce. I would say Gen Z is the workforce, okay? Last but not least, if you have trouble sleeping, you can read the 2 books that I've written, and I promise you, you will fall asleep very quickly. Okay, these are the 2 books you can check out. One is on multi-generation, the other one is on Gen Z. But the one source you do and must check out, friends, is a podcast that I run, again, simply out of the curiosity. It's called Working with Gen Z. Last year, in the year 2025, it was heard in 110 countries and over 1,200 cities. Now, I don't say this as a way to kind of say it's that I'm some deep expert. It's just that I have learned more from the expert who come in and talk about Gen Z. So it's completely free, nothing, no subscription, nothing needed. If you're a boss, if you're a Gen Z, I invite you to look at this. I work very, very kind of consciously to get deep experts who talk about the issues that are there at the workplace, but from the Gen Z lens. So that's all I have from my side. I know I've taken a little bit of 5 minutes, a little more, but hopefully this gives you a bird's eye view of some of the things that are coming at the workplace. So thank you very much. And I'm going to invite Professor Pathak to come and take it over.
સર તમારી એજ્યુકેશન વાળી
આઈ થિંક આમ તો નિખિલે પ્રેઝન્ટ કર્યા પછી કંઈ કહેવાનું રહેતું નથી કારણ કે he has covered a lot of things. But the best part is he's already working with a lot of companies and big companies and dealing with okay. ठीक है. So I think the question, I had my presentation, but the question that came to my mind after listening to Nikhil is, are we really ready to prepare this kind of this generation for the employment and for the future? That's the question we have. And the education has a lot of responsibility to prepare there. I mean, that is where I see, or we see gaps. It's not only looking at Gen Z, but it's looking at the challenges the industry is facing with the mixed generation. And how do we take up this to education? I have very few things to show because I think many things are covered. But when it comes, what comes after Generation Z, that unfortunately you do. And I think whether we believe it or not, they are already here. So the first thing I want to tell our educators, teachers, faculties, policymakers, are we really ready to take care of their needs and situation that he has explained, or we understand our own way? And the issue that came, because I think we find it very difficult, and many of the I think few of the faculties are here. In a classroom, we will find it very difficult to take 120-minute or 90-minute lecture. So that is where the whole problem starts. I think he has already explained that, and I'll pick up this and see the difference between the generations. I think grandma remember when a software upgrade means new socks and underwear. But now the software upgradation is daily. Technology savvy things is happening daily. Are our all educators, teachers very comfortable with technology? Or are they comfortable with Gen Z using technology? They don't. They find they are using mobile, laptop, and then they take them out of the class. Abhi to there is a configuration of mobile le lena hai, ye bhi hua hai. Ye bhi, I think, one of the technology that perhaps we may use that. Three most important thing I find that now Gen Z is really interested in changing the world, and they think they can contribute something. And if I talk in terms of the TV Rao Saab and Uday Parikh Saab, they have a very high internal locus of control. That they think they can change whatever the situation, and they are very aspirant that we will do something different than what others have done. So they don't want to follow. This generation Gen Z has, perhaps, I don't want to go into it, but the parents have also really given them full freedom. Whatever they need, they're given us. I think I know in my family also, when the child is not able to eat properly, they give either mobile or TV. Now that is how they have grown. And then you blame that they are using mobile. So what is this? I think there are a lot of contradiction within ourselves only. Second thing is, I think, however, Gen Z may not value higher education as much. Now they are interested in skills. They are interested in future. They are interested in what they want to learn. They decide what they want to learn. Let us not pre-decide. And therefore, I think the upgradation of curriculum becomes very important. It is the greatest challenge in education system. How frequent we can upgrade curriculum, how frequent you can adjust to their need. But I think this is one challenge that we will have to see. And the third is they are all entrepreneurial. And we have a young entrepreneur here. By entrepreneur, I mean, it doesn't mean they are only going to start the business, but in thinking, in mindset, they're entrepreneur. They're going to question you at any time, whether you are aged 50 years or young year of any time, and you will feel insulted. Okay, why he is asking that, why she is asking that. But you should be ready to accept that and give back something which satisfies him or her. And that is where the gap exists. I think the old education system of teacher mentality, discipline, listen to me, that days are gone now. They are not going to listen to you. I always say that they are not going to learn the way we have learned. So let us understand what are the changes they are going to learn. I think the dimensions of Gen Z is feel, I am, I do. They are optimistic about the future. Feel being authentic is important. आप जो बता रहे हैं वो कितना authentic है? How relevant it is to future? How relevant it is to you? I think Marilyn has said you have to not only link to education but link to the self. इनको क्या चाहिए वो बताना पड़ेगा उनको. And then role models for Gen Z have changed dramatically. Admired for reasons different than already said, loyalty, this kind, but now they want something innovative, different, out of box. Can we do such thing in education? Over 70% of Gen Z look forward for the new thing. I think what is new, like even market, I think he'll say what is new. So I think they will ask, aaj kya karenge? Aaj what activity, what games, what project, what new subject? Gen Z lives through visuals. I think the learning through visuals and technology, I think it's already known fact, but it's going to be very, very important. I think the only PPT era has gone, and I give my faculty strict instruction that don't use PPT for more than 15-20 minutes. Have interaction, have question answer. Then Z is likelier than millennium to act on the causes important to them. I think each one have some reason to learn, some reason to come to class, and they are different. So how do we really deal with this heterogeneous group? Gen Z as a learner have distinct defining moment, attitudes, values, aspiration. They are very high aspiration. They want to do many things in life, fast, money fast. But I think the one interesting research we got that they are not only interested in money, they are interested in doing work which gives them challenge, which gives them unique opportunity to do something. Then Gen Z students are intelligent, motivated to make change and efficient use of the resources. They value education that is flexible, personalized, and aligned with their career aspiration. And even sometime I think we need to, I think again, I like to mention McLean. He said, after 20 minutes, if you feel the students are not listening to you, do some activity, energize them, change the topic, give them issues, then come back to it. So I think these are all things that will be required in new education system. Their strong focus on mental health and well-being demand that universities provide accessible, affordable resources to foster a supporting environment. I think mental health and emotional things are becoming very, very important for them. They can express emotion. On the other side, negative side, the emotions are going to create a lot of frustration and anxieties in them. and we should understand what is happening in a classroom. So continuously observing in a classroom and trying to bring them to your topic or your issue based on what they need. They expect universities to provide an environment that caters to the mental health, social, I think already covered. They are not passive learner. I think हम पढ़ते थे तो टीचर ने जो बोला वो सही. स्कूल में तो कहती थी हमारा टीचर कहते हैं सही, फादर का कोई नहीं मानेगा. That's these are gone. They are not obedient students. They are demanding and questioning. I mentioned that they are kinesthetic learner and pragmatic. So physical activity will be very important for there. Continuous, they cannot sit on a table. So we have to do energizers, lot of activities. And then pragmatic learner, જેને ગુજરાતમાં કહીને વાસ્તવિક અને વ્યવહારુ. તો immediately they will ask you, ये कहाँ लगेगा, कहाँ काम करेंगे. I think that was missing in our education, the application part. So provide them opportunity of learning something and immediately ask them to practice it in the field, go back home or go there. So this model may be emerging, that we need not take a lot of lectures and things, teach there for 3 days, 4 days, let them go for another 5 days to field, come back again and do that. They don't, the way we learn, that already said. In classroom, they get distracted. Teacher also get distracted, they also get distracted. That is why I think I was reading and telling Nikhil that a lot of work has been done in US University, Arizona and everything. They say, don't do any session activity for 10 minutes. Then have some break between 1 or 2 minutes. Allow them to do something on mobile. Allow them to do something on technology. Then again come back and ask them questions. They have very time span attention. Maybe in seconds now, not even minutes, in 50s. I think the survey says that they are only about 60 seconds time span. बाद में वो कहाँ चला जाता है पता नहीं होता है. They struggle with emotions like anxiety, anxiousness, confusion. They have FOMO. So I think they are going to cover it. So how do we summarize the learning? Fast delivery of content, data, and graphics. I think only data is not going to. Graphic. Kinesthetic experience, problem solving, hands-on activity. I'm going to talk more about it. Speed, convenience, and finding shortcuts to competing information. How can they help it? I think sometimes I ask my teachers that whatever you're teaching, they already know. So what are you teaching? So let us ask the question. And I think one question that I was asked by one of the experts, don't teach something. It is not important what we teach, but it's important what they learn. And before you go to the session, ask your question, what they take away after my session. If you can achieve that, I think it is fine. Then delivery of learning in small bites and little chunks. Don't overload with them. Slowly do something in pieces. Problem solving, working in teams. They really work in teams very well. But you should know how to form teams also. Because sometimes in college, they have all friends team together. But in order to get experience, change your teams and do very well. I see Gen Z students as the best resource to use for education. We only treating them as a client or student, but they are the best resource to use to learn and unlearn something, like he said. Engagement in creativity, collaboration. I think there are a lot of activities I not mentioned, but activities है वो paper plane बना के problem identify करना है और उसका solution देना है. They come up with wonderful idea. The basic question that I had in mind, and I would like to ask you, the rate at which technology and generation changes, education as a challenge to cope up. Are we going to cope up with this change? Is education ready to do it? A lot of bureaucratic requirement, form requirement. So will it allow to do this? But sometimes my teacher complain, I always tell them, therefore 60 minutes in classroom, you are in charge. Nobody is going to ask you what has happened. As far as the results are good, as far as the learning are. So take all the freedom and do whatever you want to do. Is Gen Z forcing us to change our education, or was it overdue already? I think education system has to change already, or perhaps Gen Z is forcing us to think like that. And are we ready to accept the Gen Z? Now it comes the responsibility on teachers and faculty, because ultimately what is the learning is by teacher. So I think there's a cartoon here. I understand that there's a lot of learn from students, but you are being paid to teach. And somebody has very rightly said that teaching is like an orchestra, a symphony of different pedagogy mixed to create the loving tune. So it is not only one type of pedagogy, mix of pedagogy. Kabhi case study. I think case study is popular, but only case study is not an important. Some video, some graphic. I also ask them to do self-recording what they have learned today on their video. for 1 minute. Just note down what you have done and then come back and tell us. There was study done that what Gen Z expect from the teachers. The most important part is easy access and connect with them. I think nowadays, I think the faculties are so busy that after one session, they go to other session, they go out, and then when they want to connect, they are not able to connect. I think again, it is not a new thing, but when the student feel that you really care for them and you are ready to help them, then only they learn. Otherwise, just giving the session. So integrated socially conscious curriculum, really care for the student. The material bridges the gap between the academic and industry. Have the student find the best resources to share. Give student great opportunity to present their thoughts. I think at each issue, let us ask them what is your feeling, what you feel. So it gives them power and authority, and then you get sometimes very difficult question. Doesn't matter, you accept that. No, I don't know. Do you have any answer? I'll go back and tell you answer. So I think one factor that we have to understand, what you said, we don't know everything, but let's accept and be open and transparent to them. Enthusiastic about the subject matter and could communicate with the student well. Also was extremely understanding towards outside circumstances like job and commute and time and I think discipline की बात बहुत होती है, attendance की बात बहुत होती है अभी how flexible we should be. Our definition of discipline is going to not fit into that, but shall we adhere to that or not? That is a question I would like. So now an augmented educator, I think the teacher's role is transformed. And there are many things like counselor, anger management, constructive stress management, emotional, lifelong practices. And this is what a teacher will have to transform himself or herself. The challenges I already told that. I think this is the repetition. So some solutions I want to give in next 4 or 5 minutes. Apply scenario-based simulation to strengthen resilience and decision making. कुछ सिचुएशन देखे, केस स्टडी इज वन एस्पेक्ट, बट गिव अ सिचुएशन कि आज फैक्ट्री बंद हो गया है, चालू कैसे करना है, लेट देम डिस्कस. आज मार्केटिंग प्रॉब्लम है कैसे, समथिंग स्मॉल केसलेट्स. देन इंक्लूड gamified soft skill training for communication and collaboration. Leverage micro learning modules for continuous personal and emotional growth. Engage peer learning. I think peer-to-peer learning, now startup has started that. But peer-to-peer learning in a classroom is also going to be very, very important. I'll tell you some experiment I did. Provide real-world relevance. Gen Z prefer experiential learning. I think so far the education was knowledge-loaded. Now the trend is skill-loaded. Skill. But I think, like Professor Rao always say, skill, knowledge, and behavior. Combination of all these three is experiential learning. So what we do is we engage them into some activity, game, simulation situation, and then they have to perform and behave. You don't teach anything. Generate data based on their behavior, their performance, and then reflect them the mirroring. This is what you are doing. This is how it's happening. This is the learning. And then conceptualize with the group, because you will find that all members will have different behavior, different performance, and then we put it on a piece of board that this is what you have seen. So a lot of database, flipped classroom. I think this is what I have started doing it. The student will teach the topic. I did it in my family business. 2 or 3 topics I gave them, and they did wonderful work with the relevant example they gave. In my family business, this is what is happening. And then I sum up with concept and what I wanted to communicate. So concluding part, experiencing excitement. These are both positive and negative. You know what they are experiencing. They want to experience the world in the all good and bad way. Even drug aspects and other things. Excitement, they want to excite, but they don't know where it's going to take. Exposure, engagement, and even the education system, the evaluation system need to be also, they want quick feedback and quick evaluation. So can we have small quiz, small group discussion, small activities in classroom to find out what they have learned at each session and then build over it later on. So thank you. I think this is what I want you to do. And I've been in teaching field for 40 years, basically entrepreneurship and educator. So I think I am also facing a challenge, but I'm trying to adopt. And I think I have come only 30-40% way, long way to go. Thank you very much. Now we go to the consumer. I think all students and workers are consumer only.
Yes.
So we have to talk every day.
Everybody is a consumer.
ये आगे की
So I think we are running short of time now because we are behind schedule. So anyway, I'll try to cover this topic as fast as possible. And I'd like to add a disclaimer, and that is that while we have done some kind of research, these are what we call top line findings. These are hypotheses. These are not proven facts. We will have to get into deeper research in order to understand Gen Z as consumers. So this is the third module that we're going to talk about. So Gen Z, I guess we've already talked about in terms of whom do we define as Gen Zs. These are digital natives. They are the ones who have been born in the digital age. They value genuine experiences and connections, and they shape family buying decisions significantly. Earlier, we used to talk about pester power as far as the younger generation is concerned. Now it's no longer pester power only, but it's also buying power. And we'll see how that emerges. So, as has been touched upon, this whole basket of Gen Z is about 380 million consumers in India, comprising almost 27% of India's total population, which is a fairly large size. And if you were to compare this to the populations of other countries, Gen Z population exceeds in India the combined Gen Z populations of the US and the European Union, and is far larger than Japan's, making it one of the biggest and youngest cohorts globally. Therefore, it's a big market. I mean, for those of us who are involved in marketing, branding, selling, or anything that we do which involves, consumers, and we ourselves are consumers, it's interesting to understand the dynamics of what's happening. So, as has been mentioned, it's not a very uniform basket. The rural population is estimated that 63% of Gen Z is in the rural areas. In the urban areas, it's 37% of Gen Z is in urban areas. And the gender distribution is almost the same as in the national case. What is interesting to see is Gen Z today is spending directly. So earlier, it used to be largely household spending, and they used to drive household spending. Today, they earn and they spend. And that's a very interesting phenomenon that has been developing. There is a certain amount of direct spending out of their personal income. And this represents about 23% of their total expenditure. As far as influence spending is concerned, Gen Z make up almost 77%, and that is a big, big number. So you can imagine the kind of consumption that Gen Z drives, either through their own spending or through household spending. Gen Z buying power, if you were to convert it into some kind of numbers, the consumer spending is estimated at around 43% of India's total spending, which works out to a phenomenal figure of something like 72 lakh crores. And it is estimated that this in India will move to around 2 trillion by 2035. So these are numbers that might make some sense to us. But essentially, you just see the kind of basket of spending that you are talking about. Now, the next question is, where does this spending go? Where does Gen Z normally spend this money? And there are a few categories, and therefore, this will be interesting to people, either entrepreneurs who are planning to enter into these categories or those who are already there in terms of where the spends are going. So Gen Z is interested in spending on fashion, and these trends are there for us to see. They spend on technology since they are digital natives, so they want the latest gadget. It's not unusual to see Gen Z buying mobile phones with greater frequency than the other generations. They spend on food, and they enjoy diverse culinary experiences and social dining. So they end up spending a lot more on food. as compared to the older generations. They also spend on beauty and grooming. And today, the spends are something that the other earlier generations never thought about. So if someone from my generation wanted to have a haircut, one would go to a normal barber and, get a haircut at maybe 250, $300. But today it's not uncommon to see Gen Z young kids going. The women will probably spend several thousands, but the youngsters will spend, maybe more than what we did during our time. So I think it's an entire change in mindset and the way things are being bought and sold. Gaming is another factor, and you know that Gen Z spend a lot of time in gaming and also in travel. So these are some of the areas where Gen Z is spending money these days, and it has got implications of in terms of markets. In terms of the digital behavior of Gen Zs, we know that they value brands which have social values and attract loyalty. We know that they are heavily reliant on social media, and therefore implications for those in advertising, marketing, and so on and so forth. Earlier, the traditional marketing channels were television, the media channels were television, print, outdoor, and radio, and so on and so forth. No longer. If you take a look at the spends across the country and across region and across brands, you see that unless you're catching your consumers on social media, you're not able to, talk to them in a very interesting way. There is a demand for seamless experiences. So experiences is in the name of the game today. And we all know about this generation spending a lot of time on Instagram, particularly because that is more experiential than anything else. And of course, Facebook is there, but Facebook cuts across generation as well. So when you come to food culture, you see that the kind of food that is being had today is multi-cuisine. So one is not satisfied by, and that you go around Ahmedabad and you see the number of restaurants that have come about, the number of variety of cuisines that you're getting today. And who's driving this? Not the older generations. It's the Gen Z that is primarily driving this. It is not uncommon to hear from Gen Zs, and I've heard that several times, that they need a monthly budget of around 15 to 20,000 rupees just in order to cater to their needs of going to a cafe and spending time with friends. So the whole complexion of buying and enjoying and entertainment and experiencing things has undergone a very, very dramatic change. Also, this whole business about online delivery is also in keeping with the psyche of Gen Z today, where they want things quickly, they want things fast. So you have quick commerce coming in, you've got Blinkit, you've got Instamart, all these online portals which give you stuff in 10 minutes or even less. So online delivery, so convenience is the name of the game, getting things fast, and they don't mind paying the extra price for delivery. So these are the kind of trends that are happening today, and that's why today we define markets not in terms of places where you go and buy or sell things. They are described as a platform. So a platform is a market today. It's no longer, just going to a retail store and buying stuff. Those also exist, but their formats have also changed over the period of time. Also, another thing that has emerged, and most of us are using it today, is brands which have aggregated businesses. For example, you take Uber as an example. Uber does not own any taxis, but Uber creates a platform by which a convenience of delivery of a car when you want it, where you want it, at a price that you want it, becomes possible. You take an Airbnb, is another case of a platform. Doesn't own any properties, but it provides you different kinds of accommodation at varying prices at various points of time in various places. So this whole business is changing today, and we have to, I think, be aware of it if we are marketeers or trying to be marketeers. Travel and experiences, as I mentioned earlier, it's more on experiences rather than possessing assets. I recall an example where a jeweler who was one of our clients came to me and said that, look, today the younger generation does not want to buy jewelry. They are very happy with artificial jewelry. They want to, I mean, they don't think it's worthwhile spending 1 lakh, 2 lakhs of rupees on jewelry and hoarding it and keeping it in the bank and occasionally using it when there is a function. That's not their name of the game. The older generation said, "Acha, jewelry to hai, to look at it from an investment perspective." But we've heard that, investment no longer makes any sense. The generation is not planning for the future. The generation is living for today. So therefore, this whole thing about travel experiences is in line with the entire thinking of this generation. We already talked about quick commerce, which is instant gratification in shopping. Amazon started this, and now you've got rapid growth that is happening in this sector. And today, everything is on an app. You can get whatever you want on an app. And therefore, the screen, which was something that entertained us in the past, it was the cinema, it was the television screen, and now it's come to the mobile screen. So mobile is the one place where everything happens. You get your knowledge, you get your entertainment, you get your bookings done for whatever you want to do for your travel, you get whatever products you want at the online. So, and this has been accentuated by the entire push on the digital economy. So while this push is happening in gradual stages over different kinds of populations, but it is there to stay. And that's why I said that the future is two things will drive it. One is technology and the other one is the young consumer. And they both go hand in hand. So retail influence, we've also seen this happening with the modern trade, where you have retails in different formats, the malls and so on and so forth. So you can see that this is a change that is happening. Grooming we talked about, and it's a method of self-expression. Sports and fitness is another area where things are changing. The earlier generation, we grew up playing games in the football field or the hockey field or, whatever games we played. Today, the idea of sports and fitness is go to a gym, spend time there, go to and engage in social sports, which are mainly team sports. In terms of finance behavior, there's an entire sea change that is happening today. And you see that now there is more money coming into the hands of the generation. So they like to experience the feel of the money and the spending of the money. That money now is largely digital currency. And we see that changing in our banking system, in our UPI system, in our whatever system in terms. And you see that the newer generation is very, very comfortable with using a digital currency. So this is a phenomenon that is happening. So the entire idea is to keep it trend with the experience of the younger generation. Social media is something that we've already touched upon in some way, but essentially social media is something that is, I believe, is a double-edged sword. Today, I find a lot of young generation spending a lot more time on social media, and since I also wear the education hat, I find that this can be very, very detrimental. And it was mentioned by one of the speakers that, the easy way out that parents take is to give the mobile screen or give the television remote and let the child do what they want, sometimes even without monitoring, which can be dangerous. It is estimated that kids in India at least spend as much as 6 to 8 hours in this generation per day on social media. I had the instance the other day when I was teaching at Mahindra University. I found my kids coming, they were undergrads, coming to class, and some of them would troop in at whatever time, and many of them would go to sleep. And when I inquired, I found out that they were on social media till late in the night, early in the morning, and therefore they were not able to pay attention and so on and so forth. But so what do you do? How do you deal with it as an educator, as a consumer, and so on and so forth? Are things that we need to strategize on. And you've got some ideas from the earlier two speakers on this. So therefore, what are the strategies as far as we who are in marketing and branding is concerned? One is that you obviously have to blend online and offline experiences. You today cannot just say that I'm going to go on a particular media, and therefore media planning has become a much more complicated exercise. Today, you have to blend storytelling and create a sense of authenticity. And today, it is not enough to use just an Amitabh Bachchan or use Sachin Tendulkar as your brand ambassadors. Today, your influencers are bigger brand ambassadors. And some of the influencers have followers which run into several millions. So therefore, if you use that mode, you can get, you can catch a lot of the young consumers. Another thing that this generation looks at is eco-friendly practices and values, because they have realized that the world is at a stage where, climate change is happening, a lot of things that are undesirable is happening, and therefore they would give a premium to brands or products or companies that encourage eco-friendly practices. And as has been mentioned, one offering suits all is something perhaps thing of the past. You have to customize brands depending upon what customers want. So if you want a particular kind of, and there are companies that do that, if you want a particular kind of bicycle, you can actually customize your bicycle by giving your specifications, and the company will actually create it for you and ship it to you. So this is happening in various fields, and therefore, how do we see the future as far as consumers is concerned? I think the future is very bright, and you can see that this basket of consumers is going to really drive the market of the future. They are a very, very strong market. The current spending baseline is around 860 billion, but by the time you reach 2035, it will have projected to around 2 trillion. So it is a huge market, and everybody is interested in markets. Everybody who's in business is interested in markets. Governments are interested in markets. All your trade wars that are going on today, thanks to whatever the US is doing, is primarily because everybody wants to grab markets. And India is a very, very good, big market. And our Generation Z, that is what is driving the market today. So what are the challenges and opportunities that we have? Brands must obviously meet high expectations, and you must understand, therefore, consumer behavior. You must understand consumer journeys, and you must be authentic. So, in this era of fake news and fake things and fake everything, this generation is going to demand more authentic brands and that appeal to them. Capturing Gen Z's influence on household spending decisions is a significant opportunity for brands to grow. So therefore, we saw that almost 70% plus consumption of household spending is driven by Gen Z. So therefore, the essential substance that we are trying to say is that this is a driver of markets. This consumer, if you were to distill it to a particular consumer, is a very different consumer. You need to understand this consumer, and therefore, if you are in any business, you have to understand this consumer very, very carefully. And I see that happening in my own profession of advertising, marketing, and branding. I see this happening all the time. So the strategies that I used in the past are no longer relevant today, and this is going to change even more. And I see that changing with Gen AI coming. So I mean, the kids today are very comfortable with ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and what have you. So what do you do in a situation where they are already overloaded with information? So they know, they are a much more knowledgeable cohort. And not only that, they also get information, or they know where to get the information from. So you cannot really fool them. So that is something that you must bear in mind whenever you're doing any marketing effort. So to summarize, therefore, and I'm sorry if I've gone a little fast, but I've done this in the interest of saving some time. So understanding Gen Z is not optional. It is essential for relevant growth and sustainability. So this is a very, very important subject, and I'm glad that you all had the opportunity and the time to listen to us. And I think you all must have gathered a lot of information across the three sectors of the workspace, the education sector, and the consumer sector. And now, with not much ado, I would request Nikhil to chair the next panel, and I would request the Gen Z panel to please come up. And sorry if we have eaten into some of your time, but I hope you'll do a great job.
Okay, so, okay, there is a photo up very quickly. And absolutely, why not? Okay, friends. So we are running a little behind, but I'm very happy that the room is completely still full because we're now going to get into the next segment, which I think will. It's one thing to talk about a generation over slides, but it's a completely different one where we kind of hear straight from all the the colleagues that the generation that we've been talking about, whether it's as a learner, as at the workplace, or as a consumer. So we have four very diverse Gen Zs on a panel here, and I'm going to take a very quickly to introduce each of them, and then I've got a set of questions that I'm going to ask them. I think they're tough questions, but I think the responses will surprise us. I don't know. We'll see. So to my right is Natasha Bhatnagar. And Natasha works with AMA and also associated as a strategy consultant with global experience, having lived and worked in the US for 5 years. She's an avid traveler and lifelong learner. She brings cross-culture perspective, blending industry insight with curiosity and what truly shapes her generation. So Natasha, good evening. Welcome. So let's continue to give a round of applause because we're going to learn more from these four over the next 30 minutes. Next is Aishwarya Thakkar. And she's an HR leader with over 6 years of cross-industry experience, currently leading HR business partnering at Hyphen Foods. She's also a PhD scholar at the MSU of MSc University at Baroda, focusing on HR and DEI. Beyond work, she's a sports enthusiast, traveler, and a spiritual thinker who believes real growth comes from lived experiences. So welcome, Aishwarya. Okay, to her right is Akhil Sudev. Akhil, good evening. And he's currently pursuing his MBA at JG University, bringing hands-on industry experience into his academic journey. He has worked as a sales advisor at H&M, runs his own content creation agency, collaborating with leading brands like Taj Group of Hotels, Hungrito, and Shivalik Group. And finally, we have Heath Doshi. Heath is a community builder and a founder of Your Reading Circle, one of Ahmedabad's largest reader community. And I'm so very happy, Heath, you're doing this because the other day I was at Crossword and I learned that the Crossword in Ahmedabad has the fewest amount of footfalls. So I'm very happy that you're building a reading community. And the Listening Circle, a youth-led initiative working to break the stigma around mental health. He's deeply committed to creating meaningful communities and driving social impact through his work. So good evening. Okay, so we're going to start. We have a set of questions, but before we dive into the more serious stuff, I think I'm going to start with a little bit of fun, kind of a trivia. And so I've got 3 segments in which I'm going to just say something and your job will to complete it. Okay, so as a way to, in a couple of words, 3 or 4 words, and you tell us. Okay, so we're going to focus first on work. So Natasha, work is what for Gen Z?
I believe work is evolving, not
Okay.
just a 9 to 5, but like a 24/7 mindset.
Okay. Bosses should be dash. What should be the bosses be for the Gen Z?
Humorous.
Humorous. Okay. Meetings in companies are what for Gen Z?
I guess speed breakers at times.
Okay. Deadlines feel like what?
Fuel combined with pressure.
Fuel combined with pressure. Okay. Performance reviews are what?
Constructive, but slightly terrifying.
Slightly terrifying. Okay. If you have a tough boss. Okay. Life and identity. Success means what to Gen Z?
This is a difficult one. Illusion at times.
Illusion. Okay. Freedom feels like what to the Gen Z?
Like Wi-Fi with no expectations.
Okay. Adulting is dash for Gen Z.
It's a reality, but it's exciting.
It's a reality with a threat. Motivation comes from what for the Gen Z?
Progress, not pressure.
Progress but pressure. Okay, not pressure. Money versus meaning. What would you choose?
Meaning any day.
Okay. Social media for Gen Z is what?
Antisocial.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say oxygen. Okay. LinkedIn is what for Gen Z?
A great platform for branding, maybe personal branding.
Okay, excellent. Email feels like what, Natasha, for the Gen Z?
Corporate nostalgia.
Okay. AI at work. What is that for a Gen Z?
A silent co-founder.
Silent co-founder. Okay. Notifications at work. What do they make you feel like?
Anxious.
Anxious. Okay.
That
All
you
right.
have to respond to it in no time.
You have to respond to it right away. Okay. All right. So we're just getting started. Let's now get to kind of the more serious questions. So Natasha, I'll begin with you. It's often said that Gen Z is the most connected generation, continuously on devices and so on. So do you feel that this is a generation which is very connected, yet it is very, very distracted, right? And do you sense that this whole sense of being online so much part of your life, does that kind of increase the anxiety in what the day-to-day experience is for a Gen Z, or is actually helping you to kind of identify who you become? So that's one part of the question. Second is, you've lived in the US, you worked in the US, you studied there. I want to also get an outside-in perspective of how do you see the Gen Zs, because you work there. How do you see the Gen Zs in the US versus Gen Zs in India? So two questions. One is about the connectivity, and do you feel that that's a distraction? Second is, how do you compare the Gen Z cohort outside versus India?
Okay. So I do believe that we are the most connected generation, but as well as the most distracted, because I can network with somebody from across any part of the world, apply to jobs anywhere, learn a new skill, or watch a productivity reel all before breakfast. But we are also a very distracted generation. I believe it's not because that we lack discipline, but it is because that it feels like everything is just competing for our attention. So, as Alan sir rightly mentioned, that phones right now are not just devices anymore. They are social hubs, they are your classrooms, they are your offices, they're all in one. So, I think the real flex for Gen Z isn't multitasking, but it is more of focus. And I believe that if we learn to control our attention instead of the algorithms controlling it, we might be unstoppable.
Okay.
Yes.
What about your perspective of comparing two cultures? How do you see Gen Z in the Western world and Gen Z in India? Of course, we have many Gen Zs, as we've spoken in the Indian context.
So I believe I see more similarity than differences, especially when it comes to workplace, because I believe Gen Z here or in the US or anywhere in the world, in my perspective, it's not just a job. All we want is growth, because we as a generation care about purpose, culture, flexibility. We ask questions and we do expect feedback. And one thing that it is we are not afraid to walk away from situations or places that don't align with our purpose. So, and in terms of more contextual difference across two nations, is in India, we prefer something which is more related to family. We prefer stability. We prefer something long term. But my notice is that in the US, it's very individual driven. As long as I'm happy, it makes me happy. So.
Okay. All right. So very interesting. All right. So thank you for that. We're gonna go make a one round. So Heath, I'll come to you next. You are doing. You've got a social kind of project that you're running for quite some time, which is very rare. And again, you're 21. You're doing that. First of all, tell us why is it that you're doing that. And the other thing that we normally hear, at least at the workplace, is that Gen Z needs help to find out purpose in life, which almost seems for the elder generation, sometimes we spend 30, 40, 50 years of life पीछे देख के देखते अरे भाई हमारा पूरा life निकल गया, we don't know what the purpose is. But do you actually believe for your generation, because all the literature says about that this generation is very keen to deep down look at purpose. I look at my own son and he sometimes asks me that, oh yeah, I've landed a job, but is this what I will do for the next 15, 20 years? So I'm curious to hear. First, tell us about the social project that you're doing. What motivates you to do that? And then talk about the fact that this whole search for purpose in that generation, is that real? And how can employers help you find that?
ये प्रश्न ऐसा है तो जो भावना है मेरे अंदर की वो हिंदी में ज़्यादा अच्छी रहेगी, तो आई विल गो विथ इंग्लिश. Firstly, about what I'm doing, though, I am a recent graduated a year ago, and I decided on something that is a little different at the age of 22 now. I want to go full time into social work. We are registering an NGO, and I have been doing social work since last 2 years. Last 2 साल से मैं 2 initiative चला रहा हूँ. एक का नाम है Your Reading Circle, which is a readers community in Ahmedabad. Started out like that. Core intent इतना ही है कि आज सोशल मीडिया की एज में किताबों का महत्व थोड़ा कम होता जा रहा है. हम अगर गार्डन में जाए तो भी खुले आसमान के नीचे भी शायद स्क्रीन के पीछे छुपे रहते हैं. तो एक छोटा सा विचार है कि किताबों को लोगों से ज़्यादा जोड़ते हैं. वी होस्ट मीटअप्स अक्रॉस द सिटी. 50-60 जितने हमने मीटअप्स होस्ट किए हैं. एंड देन वी ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड बिल्डिंग फ्री लाइब्रेरीज अक्रॉस द सिटी. तो परिमल गार्डन में वैसे और 10 गार्डन, मतलब टोटल 11 गार्डन इन अहमदाबाद, now Baroda, and we are scaling that project across the India, across the country. तो एक ये प्रोजेक्ट है जहां हम फ्री लाइब्रेरीज बना रहे हैं कोर इंटेंट के साथ कि किताबों को वापस इंसानों से थोड़ी ज़्यादा जोड़ते हैं. और एक इनिशिएटिव है जो मेंटल हेल्थ पे है. उसका मेन इंटेंट उतना ही था कि एट अ वेरी यंग एज आई सॉ कि मेंटल हेल्थ को लेके हमारी सोसाइटी में कितना बड़ा टैबू है. अगर हमें खून निकलता है तो हम भागते हुए हॉस्पिटल चले जाते हैं, पर जब मन की बात आती है तो शायद बाजू वाले को भी नहीं कहते. और ये मन की बातें, मन का लोड जब बढ़ जाता है तब कोई ऐसी घटनाएं होती भी है जो हम आसपास सुनते हैं. वैसा ही कुछ मेरे बहुत करीब हुआ जब अ फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन ट्राइड अटेम्प्टिंग सुसाइड. एंड देन वी डिसाइडेड कि इसको तोड़ने के लिए, टैबू तोड़ने के लिए कुछ चालू करते हैं. वी कॉल दैट प्रोजेक्ट, दैट इनिशिएटिव एज द लिसनिंग सर्कल. तो उसके 2 अलग अलग प्रोजेक्ट वेरिएंट है. अवेयरनेस पे काम कर रहे हैं, थेरेपेटिक एक्टिविटीज़ के इवेंट्स कर रहे हैं. एंड कोर इंटेंट इज की इन कमिंग ईयर्स हम मेंटल हेल्थ को कैसे देखते हैं, इंडिया मेंटल हेल्थ को कैसे दिखता है, वो बदलना चाहते हैं. तो आई थिंक द रीजन वाई आई एम वर्किंग ऑन दिस थिंग्स इज लास्ट 2 साल से मैं बहुत एक फैक्ट के करीब हूँ कि मोर्टालिटी इज रियल. ऑल द पीपल इन दिस रूम आर नॉट गोना बी वन डे. एक दिन हम चले जाएंगे. तो ऐसी चीज़ पे काम करते हैं जो मीनिंगफुल हो, जो डेथ बेड पे बैठे हुए हमें प्राउड फील करवाए. And for me, social work is the thing. Coming to the question ki, I also feel that many people of my age are inclined towards purpose. अब choice है जो शायद पहले नहीं थी. अब दुनिया थोड़ी ज़्यादा हम बहुत छोटी एज में ही सोशल मीडिया के द्वारा देखते हैं. तो I think yes, definitely. And for someone who is confused, I feel one of the major reason is कि हम खुद के साथ ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं बिता पाते, मोबाइल की वजह से या जो भी वजह से. If we spend time with ourselves, if we meditate a bit, if we can travel alone, I think धीरे धीरे हम पर्पस के करीब जाएंगे. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Heath. Ashwar, I'll come to you next. So, of course, you're wearing a hat of an HR in one of the firms, and so you recruit people, you bring them on board. My sense is you would probably have to get Gen Zs on board as well among other generations, right? So let's focus on Gen Z. When you think about getting Gen Zs or your conversations with Gen Zs, right? One of the things that perhaps is a stereotype that is out there that says that, okay, this is what we expect from the company. So this is what the Gen Z is becoming vocal about. This is what I want from the company. So we'd like to understand, like, what is that? And perhaps the flip question would be, do you ask in your hiring, what, so the Gen Z expects something from the firm, but what can the firm expect from them, right? And more longitudinally, right? So I'd be curious to see, what do you hear? What is bringing Gen Z in, and how are they seeing organizations?
I guess I'll start with what Natasha also mentioned, that we all be it Gen Zs. I will slightly not only talk about Gen Zs here, but be it Gen Zs, be it Generation X, Generation Y. After all, we are humans and we look for growth, we look for recognition, we look for self-esteem, we look for respect wherever we are working, right? So Gen Zs are no different than looking for growth throughout their journey at workplaces. So again, it's like a chicken or egg kind of a situation wherein is what growth come first, or the contributions which we as Gen Z or humans make in the workplaces. So I guess growth is what comes, is an enabling factor, or maybe is what is derived out of contributions, and out of contributions again the growth happens. So it's all codependent. So I would rather say that uh, the Gen Zs or the employees who come to workplace, ideally we all come with a thought process that it should not be a transaction. It is ideally the partnership which we want to build. So irrespective of gender, age, or generations, it is all about seeing eye to eye, looking into each other's individualism, and working towards the growth of the individual as well as the organization. Coming to what an organization can expect is basically, once you are able to give the drivers or the promoters for growth, you can surely expect business outcomes, impacts which are driven by ownership, accountability, consistency, and transparency for sure. That is what will that is what is the Gen Z, which is having imbibe in their nature, their way of working. And what was the last thing?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's it. Those are two questions, but I do want to ask a quick follow-up question. In most surveys, they will say that when you're joining a company, generally salary is the top or the top two, right? What is kind of, in your view, from all the what you have seen, is the top two on the Gen Z list when choosing a company?
So I can share one recent example which I had when we do campus hirings, right? We go for a hunt of fresh talents in the market. And what a lot of campus hires which we hired were looking not for compensation. They were actually looking for what is the role they are going to play, and what is the 3 years. They were not even talking about 5 years, 10 years. They were saying that what after 3 years I'll be in this organization when I perform this role. So they might not be looking for a longer trajectory, but they surely want that a surety, that trust, that whatever they are going to contribute is going to lead to some impact at a macro level for a business, for a nation, and in total, then understand that their contribution matters.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you. Coming to you, Akhil. So this is more on the topic that Alan was talking about. So let's talk to kind of help you think about, from a consumer's perspective, what in your mind is swaying the Gen Z to bring a certain loyalty towards brand? Because as we heard from Alan, that the rules of the loyalty have changed completely. The rules in which we woo the customer has changed completely. The customer has become extremely powerful. So what would you say attracts or keeps Gen Z at certain brands, right? And then are there particular brands that are popular among Gen Z in India?
So honestly, we are coming from a generation where we have this liberty to skip the ad. Like in your generation, there was, the primary source of information was TV or radio, where you didn't had any liberty to either skip the ad or to pay some extra amount to avoid the ads. But we do. The other thing is our thumbs are trained to react within 0.5 seconds. So if we find any brand sending a message which is overly scripted or overly polished, we feel intimidated and forced to buy that product. So we tend to avoid such brands. But if a brand try to tell a story, build relatability, or they showcase authenticity, we try to incline more towards them. So if a brand wants to target a Gen Z audience, they should be having a personality beyond that brand and logo. They should be marketing themselves as an ethical brand, and they should be more human towards the customer.
Okay. Why the ethical point? What's is that a real issue? What does that matter to the Gen Z?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
ethical part, if I would say, I used to work at H&M, and H&M has this great concept of recycling clothes. If you give them 7 pieces of clothes, it could be anything, it could be handkerchief or towels, they will provide you a discount coupon worth 50%. I don't know if they have still with this, but that used to be the thing. So that is the factor which attracts Gen Z.
Okay. Okay. We are going a little over. I hope everyone's okay. Just take a few more minutes. So one question to everybody here. We've talked about 3 different angles, right? The consumer, the workspace, and the learner, right? From your perspective, I'm going to ask each one of you, right? When you think about all the walks of society, right? All the stakeholders of life, right? Are there things that, from the society that, they need to understand about your generation, but they're probably not asking?
I think Gen Z is overwhelmed. We face competition globally. So people used to say that Gen Zs are lazy, but they are not lazy. They are trying to find meaning behind what they are doing. So Gen Zs are grossly, एक नेगेटिव माइंडसेट बन चुकी है लोगों के मन में, बट जेंजीज आर समवन जो अभी भी एक्सप्लोरिंग स्टेज में है. सो आई थिंक दे शुड be having some time to explore themselves and to be ready for the real world.
Okay. Ashwin?
I guess a lot of us, you also mentioned during your session that, a lot of us have that notion that Gen Zs are entitled, they are notorious, they don't care or give a damn about what is happening in the society or environment. So I guess these are all myths. We need to actually get into understanding Gen Zs, and as during the presentations we also saw that it ranges from certain age to a certain age. There are range of age brackets as well. A 14-year Gen Z and a 29-year Gen Z also would have a different thought process and a different way of living, right? Just to give an example that, a lot of times I myself have heard that, तुम्हारा काम क्या है? You will wake up in the morning, go to office, come back, have dinner and just sleep and, scroll through social media. That's what you do. However, people don't understand that, as a Gen Z, I also love sparing some time at a temple. I want to want to read some good spiritual books, mythological books, wherein, just to give you an example, that, a lot of you have witnessed that, Mahakumbh happened in 2025. And if you go back and see the data, 45% of the attendees at Mahakumbh were below 30 years of age, right? So there is a notion that people who are a Gen Z are not spiritual. So I guess a lot of myths needs to be broken, a lot of things needs to be talked out, needs to be understand that not a single person can be labeled as a Gen Z or this kind of a behavior. Every person in that generation or across the generation is human. So start treating everybody first as a human and then maybe label it as a Gen Z or a gender or an age criteria.
Okay, excellent. Yes. Yeah, the whole trend of spiritual clubbing, right? It's catching on. Okay, what about you? Yeah, what is it that someone should be asking about your generation, but they're not?
I think I agree with what Akhil and Aishwarya said. To add on to that, I think in terms of marketing, if we talk about, this is the generation जो सोशल मीडिया से सबसे ज़्यादा अवेयर है. उनको समझ है कि कैसे रील्स बनाई जाए, कैसे रील्स परफॉर्मेंस मार्केटिंग में यूज़ करी जाए. And I personally know a lot of companies who are earning lakhs and crores in revenue just by doing performance marketing on social media, which another generation might not understand, but our generation can. People in a few countries are hiring जो Instagram scroll कर पाए, थोड़ी पैटर्न समझ पाए, and then वो according ads बना पाए. So this is very talented generation. If we can pick up the right people, it can be really helpful, especially in that domain. I feel अगर सही लोग मिलते हैं तो उनका जो thought process है, उनके जो विचार है, especially in how we buy things, it can be a lot helpful. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Natasha.
I believe that as a generation, we should not just be labeled as Gen Z, because it's as Aishwarya rightly said, we are all human. And I believe because we are the younger generation, we need more guidance than anybody else did in the previous generations, because the world is changing so rapidly and there are so many things that even we need to adapt to. And just because we learn things in a different way doesn't mean we are anxious or we are not disciplined. And I believe that if given the right guidance, we can channel our exposure with the intention, and I think we can be the most impactful generation as well.
All right, excellent. Okay, so we will have time for just maybe 1 or 2 questions from the group. Can we do that? Is that okay? I think I have more, but let's hear from you. Yes, sir. माइक चाहिए आपको जरा, या फिर आप जरा, हाँ, sure.
Of a marketing guy, so Gen Z as a consumer or Gen Z as an employee. Okay, as a parent, okay, I'd like to tell you, like, about war. They say you need to prepare for war. War is unpredictable. So as a parent, I need to just prepare for a Gen Z, how to handle them, and actually what happens as a case study differs. So everyone has. These guys are successful Gen Zs. I have seen him perform in my society about mental health, and it was really, tear-jerking, and I'm really doing good work. What I want to ask the Gen Z here is,
yes,
as a parent, what do you expect from a parent? Generation X, okay? The guys, the failures, you can say. What do you expect? What we should do so that we can handle the Gen Z well and get the best out of them, because we care for them. After me, like in the European world, they don't care about, they will just teach you and just leave you.
Right.
We care, so that's why we suffer a lot. People talk about Gen Z suffering, no one talks about the parent suffering.
Right.
So I would like to know from you tips how a parent can handle the Gen Z better, maybe make them more fruitful for themselves and the society.
Okay, so all parents, please listen up. I think we all have had that question: how to manage this Gen Z. So, what can you say? I mean, from your years of growing up, what have you seen? What can the parents learn, or things that have worked for you all, for either new parents, young parents? Just any quick thoughts.
I can answer that. I believe that more than handling Gen Z, I just believe that they should be treated with love and respect is what matters. And something that parents, what we expect from parents is to meet in the middle. I'm not saying that you should understand everything that we like, but we can also understand what you like and maybe meet somewhere in the middle. That way, even we are happy as well as you are. So we can live together happily.
All right. Okay. Meet in the middle.
I like to add here, I guess, though we might not, I guess I'm not wrong in saying that none of us are parents as yet. However, we surely are children. So that's where the only point which I'll want to say is that, a lot of us would have watched Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. Don't be B-Day to your child. Hamare zamane mein ye hota tha. I guess, again, giving an illustration or example is okay. However, a lot of times we feel that, when such examples are given to me as a child, if my dad says that, this is how we used to do it, this is how it happens, my always then instinctive response is that it's not my fault that you were born in those days. It's not in my hand, right? So I would just say that, try to be in that zone, in the space which they are in, right? They are in a digital era. Get on Instagram, understand what Instagram is, help them understand pros and cons of Instagram. So today, if I want to post a story, so earlier that was maybe if you have a child who is a 14 or 15-year-old, they will not add you in their Instagram, that, I don't want my parents. It's not considered cool. However, if I talk about me, I am a 29-year-old Gen Z, right? Just a ballpark in terms of, a Gen Z, to be called as a Gen Z. So in that way, I would want my parents to be there. I will tag them into stories. I'll make them understand this is the brand I watch. This is the brand I like. You should also get into it. Hop onto that trend. Be with me. So I feel it's more about companionship when it comes to parenting also for Gen Z. And I guess a lot of problems will be solved. They'll be considering you as their friends and not look out friends outside. So that is what I feel.
I think she nailed it very well. I have gone through this journey. So now I am on the account of my Instagram. She confers with me everything, all secrets. Getting to the middle, yes, yes. Sometimes it's on 25% on my side and 75 on their side. But Nikhilji, I just want to appreciate, this is something unique and this is needed for parents. I think if the parents manage the Gen Z well, we will have a better society and a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
So I really
absolutely.
say that this is perfect and very perfect. I
Yeah,
would say.
absolutely. Okay, so I think I've just been signaled. we have shot over, but just as a quick 60-second way to wrap up, another rapid fire round as a way to close out, and then we have some closing formalities. So Natasha, again back to you. In 10 years, what will work be for the Gen Z?
I believe it will be skill based, not title based.
Okay, Heath, the best manager you will have to have what?
Can I pass on?
Yeah, you can.
I guess clarity over control.
Okay. A workplace that loses Gen Z will always do what? Dash.
Micromanaging.
Okay, so someone who micromanages will lose Gen Z. One habit that Gen Z must learn.
Patience.
Patience. Okay, you heard it from the Gen Zs, okay? One habit that the leaders or the bosses must unlearn.
Because I said so. Yeah, that is something that the managers should not be like, just because I said so.
Oh, okay. It just because he's saying it, okay? What is the Gen Z's one superpower?
I guess they are fearless.
Fearless. Okay, excellent. What would you say is Gen Z's one blind spot?
Analysis paralysis, because they have been exposed to so many things.
Okay. What would be one advice to your future boss? And everybody can kind of respond. Yeah.
Maybe challenge me, but back me as well.
Challenge but back me. Fantastic. Excellent. Yeah, go ahead. Same one.
I'm registering an NGO, so if I am gonna have a boss, I might be the Steve Jobs to nikala jaye. So I rather not have one.
Okay. What would be the advice to your 40-year-old self? So look out, and what might you say the way the world is going, with everything is happening? What might be the advice to yourself?
Be curious and keep learning.
Okay.
I guess learning agility works across generations and across time.
Okay. So, friends, we have a lot of questions, and I'm sure we can be here for another hour. But this is such a, I think, to me, I think this is the last half an hour has been extremely, riveting for all of us as parents, as consumers, as marketeers, and certainly as bosses. So, let's first give a big round of applause to all our Gen Z panelists. We promise you in a future one, we'll give you more airtime. We ran out of time. Yes.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to thank AMA, and not just for calling us here. Since 4 years I'm coming here, and whatever initiative I am running or Akhil has been doing a lot of work, and I am very sure for Azaria and Natasha it is the same. AMA has played a very big role in our life. मेरे co-founder है जो Your Reading Circle के, वो मुझे यहाँ पहली बार मिले थे. जो मेंटल हेल्थ का इनिशिएटिव है वो भी यही जगह की वजह से है. बहुत चीज़ें जो जीवन में हमने की है, अगर AMA ना होता तो हम नहीं कर पाते. So we are genuinely grateful that we are called here today.
Absolutely.
And
There is-
thank you so
total
much.
agreement in that. So let's give a big round of applause to our Gen Z. And I think we close by saying that, friends, again, look, every generation feels that they had it tougher, and the generation before us doesn't get it. But we all owe, right? As I say, go back to our kind of the societal put that we want to do the goal of Viksit Bharat and a country that have a goal of 2047 and becoming that one developed nation. The one generation that we have to ensure succeeds is the Gen Z generation. So let us do our part to help them succeed, and with that we'll end. So once again, friends, thank you very much. Please do stay on stage. I've told there is a quick we have a quick bouquet of gift for each one of you. Okay.
Just a quick vote of thanks. Thank you for coming for this session and spending 2 hours. I hope it has been useful for all of you. I'd just like to add one point, and that is this is for us a passion. It's not just an event that we are doing over here. We want to do more work in this. We are going to do more work in this as under the AMA banner. So any one of you who's interested in joining in this journey, because AMA is truly a democratic institution. It is for everybody. Everybody can participate in whichever way you want to participate. So if you are interested, please let us know through whatever means of communication you have that you would like to be part of the journey, because we learn from each one of you as much as you learn from us. So let's make it a participative journey. This is not just an event. This is a process. And my dream and our dream is that we make something substantial in terms of contribution to the body of knowledge that already exists. And let us start from AMA. AMA has been a beacon for many of us, and has just been mentioned here that, we've all learned, we've grown here, we've spent a lot of time here. So let's continue this journey on this topic or any other topic of your choice. Thank you very much.